Hello, everyone. Ian Hamilton with Good Virtual Reality here, joined by Arturo Perez, the head of Kluge and Synth Riders. Why don't you tell me where you're tuning in today from, Arturo?
Yeah, the company's headquartered in LA, and this is where I am. I'm in Marina Del Rey. Very sunny day. I was just telling you, celebrating the birth of my second child here at home. So, yeah, doing a little bit of uh, father and CEO roles these days.
Congratulations. Yeah, I know those days. We were just talking about it, and having a home office is quite a thing
Yeah,
when the family is on the other side of the door, sometimes screaming at you or knocking
yeah,
at the door,
yeah.
trying to get through and have family time when you're in the middle of a different mindset. Do you find, like, is that your experience, and do you find VR helps you at all with that?
Oh, geez. Well, it's interesting. I actually just used my Vision Pro to record them the other day, and it's interesting to watch, especially my toddler, my 2-year-old, like just watch me on that. Like she's like, "How do you see me?" I can see like how he can see me. I don't know how. Like,
I love
it's
that.
an
Yeah,
interesting relationship with devices, right? Because there's already like the laptop, the TV, the phone, and now you got a VR. Like it's like what? What's happening?
Oh,
Um,
yes, I love that. I love, I've got a frame TV, and
mhm.
it's got art mode, and so you can kind of just really turn the TV off, or, like, turn it off so it's just a black screen,
Oh,
or most of the time, just leave it so it's a still screen, and I really like having that kinda control over that kind of medium, right, or, like, that medium on my wall so it doesn't
yeah,
kind of the kid's not craning his head during dinner, and, you're able to manage the screen time a little bit better,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Managed screen time is a thing. Let me tell you. Yes.
it's a heck of a journey. Good luck, on that. So let's talk a little bit about Kluge and Synth
Okay.
Riders. My first question that always pops into my mind is, how did you get the name Kluge? Where does that come from?
Oh, gee. Haha. Well, it was an online group. It was from the internet. I come from IRC, Internet Relay Chat, so it was from back in the day. And it was actually my buddies, but I ended up building a music magazine with that name. And that's sort of the beginning of Kluge is this online music magazine. It was Kluge with a D, and so a lot of people would call it Kludge or Fudge. So that's why we took out the D for the agency. But this is we're talking back in 98, 99. So the name has been with me for a long time. It's funny because it's this Latin guy with the Slavic name, but I do love its meaning. It's got a profound etymology going back from Slavic times. It meant the key to unlock. Then the Germans called it like a witty way of doing something, and then the English, as it traveled to the West, it became this sort of thing of inelegant solution, like a weird workaround. Which you have the famous Klutz machine, the Goldberg machine, and then back in the US, is when they got even more technical with the Patchy or, Patchy solution. And I think that's a perfect kind of metaphor to technology. It's always kind of trying to it's all like the web, the internet, it's patchy. It's not nothing's like fully done. And it went from a strange name to something I really love because it's very descriptive of who we are, and we're not afraid to like innovate, but it's not always going to be a clean way to get there, but we get there anyway. And there's this sort of like the workaround mentality. So yeah, it's been with me for a long time, back since like my college years.
Interesting. I love that. That's going to end up being a good theme for our conversation here today.
I could see that.
While you were saying that, I was thinking back to, I went to the Poly Awards recently here in New York, and there was this moment in the middle of that event when a dev basically had to put the Wi-Fi the Wi-Fi info on a cardboard piece, on a piece of cardboard. So he's this is Alex at Agile Lens. He's standing there up in front of this audience of real physical people gathered in New York for this awards ceremony. There's people getting ready to digitally join. But before they do that, he's trying to get everyone on the Wi-Fi for his co-location experience that he's built inside a stage presence, I think is his platform. and he's got to get everyone on the Wi-Fi for that. And so he's standing at the front of this audience in a very nice theater with a cardboard thing in front of him that might as well look homeless because he's got scribbled on this the Wi-Fi network name and password, and he's standing there up at the front to try to get everyone on the Wi-Fi. And then in the middle of this event, I'm texting him because my controllers have died, and I'm like, "Do you have any AA batteries?" And in the middle of this event, 2 AA batteries drop on my lap from him,
Oh, wow.
um, and I'm just like, "Wow, you are the most prepared developer like, I've been doing this for a long time, and I didn't even think of, bringing extra AA batteries to my event." And the theme of that was good VR by any means necessary was kind of the
Mm.
vibe, and I'm thinking that's kinda your vibe a little bit too here with the way you've gotta kind of fight for it. So,
That's true.
uh, let's go back to the beginning here a little bit. How did you end up getting involved in VR in the first place?
Well, so we've actually been a company since 2007, started in LA, kind of some context. I'm Venezuelan. I came to LA when I was 14, but I sort of always loved my country and my people. And um, as we as I started the company here, I ended up looking for Venezuelan vendors. Ended up living in Venezuela in 2009, and that's where I met my co-founders, my now co-founders, Abraham and Daniel, who ended up moving to the U.S. And so the company partnership is three Venezuelans and one Australian. I would say the Australian is the English version, the English speaking Caribbean guy, because he's there's a cultural compatibility there, and so the company has a huge now presence in Latam and even in Spain, and so on. So that's sort of the root of it, and then we were doing a lot of web design, design thinking, UX services, and at one point in 2016, which is like kind of when mobile VR was really getting, that was the thing. We were like, hey, let's we're sort of getting really sick of doing websites. We know we can do more. Why don't we start a labs and start doing things? And we chose VR because the mobile wave was at its peak. We didn't want to go somewhere that it was already saturated. So we moved to what we thought was the next frontier. And so we started doing mobile VR stuff in 2016, prototyping stuff in 2017. We made a game very much for the sake of making one, called Mats VR. The whole idea was Space Invaders in VR, kind of retro games. And in that spirit, that's late 2017 is when Synth Riders starts to get prototype. It was just one more prototype. And then my co-founder Abraham couldn't stop prototyping it, and it became a full game. By late 2018, we sort of realized there's an audience here, there's a community. This is the game we want to build.
So that was compare that timeline to the Beat Saber timeline, there. Did you see Beat Saber come out, like, while you're working on that? Is that how
Yeah,
that works?
yeah, yeah. I'll never forget. Like the night, they released a video, right, that went pretty viral, and their stories that we went to sleep thinking we didn't do anything, like business as usual, and we woke up and we never sort of received so much buzz. Well, when they woke up, we woke up and saw the video, and I'll never forget Abraham's face. He was so sad because he's like, "Fuck, it looks just like ours." But we were coming at it from our own angle, so that was a little bit, just it helped us because it showed the market, but we sort of got in their shadows when we were doing our own thing.
Mm. I that's wonderful context there. I can imagine that scene in my head. It's the scene that a lot of devs must feel, right? Like
Yeah,
you're toiling away at this project, and you've got competitiveness in your head. You've also trying not to let that competitiveness overtake you, like, follow your vision and stay focused and not let anyone else sort of like influence you. But also here's this game that is building a ton of buzz that kind of stole your
right.
thunder a little bit.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, totally.
so Facebook, how did you feel the day Facebook bought Beat Games?
I think. I think I didn't think much of it. I think let me think about the timeline. Yeah, no, I think they bought them before we got on Quest, right? So, we were still pretty small to at that point, we realized, it was very early on, like, Beat Saber caught on fire, right? And so we were a little bit left in the dust, and, but we kept going, right? We had a vision. It's not like that affected our game development. And so we just kept going on our own. I think at that point we felt so disconnected from the industry that um, I don't know. It was hard to compare us. We were just like, okay, let's just keep doing our thing and see where it goes.
Mm. And then, I know you've had some layoffs recently, so why don't you talk
Yeah.
about layoffs and what led to those? And, I don't wanna make this a loaded question here in asking about Meta Horizon Worlds and Meta's moves here of late, but I do need you to kind of address sort of the relationship between those layoffs and the path that you're on as a company.
Yeah. So um, to sort of our service DNA, because that was what we were. After Synth Riders did become successful and sort of grew on the Quest ecosystem, we built a pretty good relationship with Meta. And my thing is always, what what other gigs can we get from this relationship, right? And something came up in June 2021, which was pretty early on, about Horizon World. So we ended up working with Meta in Horizon World since June 2021. So we've been a partner of theirs for a long time. That announcement became public in 2023, I believe. And we've worked with them on a lot of games that they publish under their name and the Meta Horizon name. So we work on things like, there's a game called Smash Golf, a game called Dream Leaper. We work on the Halloween Horror Nights. We were part of that team. We work with Dressets on a game called Fashion Rivals that launched earlier this year, actually. And so there's been a we basically form a very nice relationship with Meta on both the Quest side with Synth Riders and on the Horizon World side, across multiple divisions of Meta. And so that allowed us to grow more than people. People knew Synth Riders was successful, but when they heard you guys are 100 people, that was surprising to most, right? And it was that Meta relationship that we built over the years. And then, it's no surprise that things have been happening in Horizon World. So we had a downturn last year, and we had a downturn this year, that basically brought us from 103 people at our peak to 50 now. So we did go down in half, but our main revenue has been work for hire, and it's not exclusively Meta and Horizon Worlds. We've done other projects that I cannot name, but we've been partners with other VR studios as well, and things of that nature as a work for hire capacity. So we built a lot of our business on the service side, but the way we look at Kluge is the IP is the company value, right? It's really what we want to do. Service is how we don't have any outside funding, so service is how we capitalize ourselves.
Mm, interesting. And then that gives you eyesight into basically the entire industry, right? Like
Yes,
you
yes,
give
yeah.
you obviously had to reduce significantly when Meta reduces its spend, and then maybe you'll rise again if another company shows up and really starts looking for the VR expertise that you guys have. Let's talk about Synth Riders for a minute before we kind of come back to this. Tell me what Synth Rider, like how many platforms you're on, and what your plan is there. Maybe if you could contextualize how large it is.
Mm. Well, yeah, Synthwriters has done quite well. I think there are, when we look at like the at Beat Saber specifically, when people think of a contender, I think we come to mind. We're the first that comes to mind, and we've played that to our advantage. There are other Pistol Whip is a very popular rhythm game, but it's not as straightforward of a comparison as sort of say Synth Riders and Beat Saber. So we started seeing ourselves as the PepsiCo, in this in these soda battles, in these rhythm battles, and being like, hey, it's actually good that Beat Saber is within the Meta ecosystem. We can broaden out. When Beat Saber dropped out of PSVR 2, we released a song, "We Are the Champions," the same day, right? Like, we played that up, and say we're not going away from this platform. We were, day one launch, on Apple Arcade with on Apple Vision Pro, via Apple Arcade with Synth Riders there. We have a demo on Spectacles, that was announced on the last Lens Fest, for Snap. And then we were day one partner on Galaxy XR as well with Android XR. So, we're not making a secret that that's what we like to do. We like to be there first everywhere that Beat Saber's not. And then on Quest, we're doing pretty well. Samantha Ryan at the last Connect did when she talked about MH Plus, she mentioned that Synth Riders has done 60% of its revenue from MH Plus, so we're doing very well there as well. So yeah, it's a nice game, for us. It's a forever game. We plan to keep updating it. We just did a big progression update now, the level up update, which was a one of our we've been so busy with ports, that and adaptations that we hadn't had time to really put beefy features into the game. So we're excited that we're back at that, with Level Up, and we're doing more work there and more work, to that degree, in addition to ongoing music updates, which get bigger and bigger, right? Like we recently had, Lady Gaga, and then, not to mention, we do have a flat screen version, which came out in December with Nintendo Switch. So it's getting a bigger and bigger ecosystem, and it's built a music rhythm expertise that we're leveraging elsewhere as well.
Okay, so now you've got some opportunity to lay flames down if you really want to. You choose what you want to where you want to take this question, I suppose. But Meta did have its big pullback here on Horizon Worlds. It really shocked creators with the kind of sudden removal. I just had a conversation with two organizers of Alcoholics Anonymous meetings who very much were invested in the Horizon platform. They weren't only on the Horizon platform. There was meetings happening for AA in basically all the online networks, going back to AltSpace. So this wasn't their first rodeo, I think is one of the quotes that they said, on sort of getting shut down. But also, I've just really people that poured their heart into this platform, and it was unique the way it
Yeah,
kind of started out there, building up from these primitive shapes,
right.
and actually sharing knowledge with other creators in this very piecemeal way of like, oh, I've already done that, and here, let me share this with you. And people kind of getting good vibes off of that. And then it shifted so many times since then. And then this sudden pullback. And then within a day or 24 hours or something, Andrew Bosworth gets out there and says, okay, well, we'll leave the app up. And that was a relief to a bunch of people, but, like, it also sends this really confused message out there, and there's people who remember how Meta treated them over Echo Arena, acquiring that company and then ripping the plug out of, Echo Arena really rapidly, really shocking people in a similar manner. So, for the foreseeable future is not a huge, uh, it's not keeping people who were really invested in that network. It's not helping them sleep at night, right? They're still figuring out how I port my work elsewhere. Maybe there's some way I can get it on VR chat, or an even more open network than that. Um, and then that's why I kind of led with the question about Beat Games and the acquisition there, and how that changes the game. How do you feel about Meta's investment in this space, and about shifting strategies?
It, it's Yeah, I appreciate the concepts up front. Yeah, look, I think Meta has made it very clear. that they are looking for scale, um, and that's their mandate, right? And they're gonna look for growth and scale, at a size that, it's more than like Kluge needs or looks for, right? Like we were happy with the growth BR was going in at its peak, which for us it was Quest 2 days. It's when we really saw the peak of sales. Some people, by the way, did see some bigger spikes on Quest 3. So let's say somewhere in that timeline between Quest 2 and Quest 3, I think is when BR like peak growth. And for us, that steady growth was nice, and we were happy. But we, even at 100, we're small potatoes, right? So I think Meta has always made it clear that they were looking for hundreds of millions, right? And BR was not going there, even if things that I think we all wish would have not like, things controversial things like the open store, discoverability issues, some of like the way that Horizon Worlds and the Quest applications work together. Like even if all those things hadn't been done, and maybe like the curation system could have stayed, or social would have been introduced differently, or Horizon Worlds would have never been a part of the mix. Nonetheless, it wasn't going to grow. Like BR was not ready for hundreds of millions. I think that part is true. Could it have grown a little bit more? I think so, but not to where Meta was looking. And so
Mm,
I think that when you look at that, um, it they and then, when AI comes along with ChatGPT, and they start, that starts accelerating their AI glasses and whatnot, I I see why they change. And the change has happened dramatically in the last 2 years. I think we've seen more change and faster change than ever before. Klutz just gets to see a little quicker than the public, but I think we're all seeing it in real time, right? And then, yeah, like, look, there's times when I've been unhappy about it, but I do think that they have been consistent that their goal is a different scale than what we on the indie side are looking for. And so, those decisions are made with a different calculus altogether. I think the communication could always be better, but that's always true, right? Like, I would say the one thing that I see about Meta is that I've never seen a company of this scale operate so much like a startup. Like when they change and they go like, and that can create, some whiplash, some trashing. But the kludge mentality is to be kludgy about it and to adapt. It was painful to do layoffs, very painful, especially last year. Not to say that this year, it's not to say that the people always hurts, but the first time you sort of realize you're going down, your growth is now going the other way, it really hurts. But and I think everybody in VR was trying to cope, but I think the writing was on the wall since probably a year plus ago, right? That this was happening, and it just kind of went from is it happening to it's really happening to like, oh shit, it's happened really quickly.
mm,
Um, and so I think that I get why it's happening. Uh, I wish the communication had sometimes been different, but I also understand and I'm adapting. And I think the best thing that we can do is adapt. Uh, in the sum of it, I do think that, I mean, look, at the end of the day, like one of my posts on LinkedIn was still like, oh, like after the big layoffs happened at Reality Labs in January, I'm still like, but there's still good people there. There's still hope, because we want Meta to keep helping in this ecosystem. Like if you compare, and this is true that Bossword said, we're still the number one source of funding for VR, and that is true. Like as much as they've declined the hell out of it, and as much as everybody's doing layoffs because they depress the VR economy, like they're still the number one investor out there, and it's still the Quest is still the biggest ecosystem. So until that changes, we got to root for them, and we got to hope that they help, they keep the ecosystem alive, because no one's stepping up. It's not even close.
Oh, wow. That is such a real answer. There's a lot to respond to there. I hope my listeners out there really appreciate the real talk here that you're giving. These are unrehearsed questions, unrehearsed answers. We're speaking both from our hearts here a little bit
Yeah.
about what's going on in this market. And, I don't want to people when you start talking about Twitter or you start talking about LinkedIn, you're talking about this little window where you got to compress your thoughts and get them
Right.
ready for all the commenters who are going to be ripping apart what you say, and that makes you got hot takes, and people start criticizing you for not having a hot take. Like that's ridiculous that it's that kind of mentality is what our discourse is because
Right.
of social networks in a large part. And again, this is real talk. So while you were talking there, I was thinking about two companies. I was thinking about End Dreams, and I was
Mm,
thinking about Cloudhead Games.
mm.
End Dreams I think they called themselves largest company in VR, and then they had their layoffs quite recently that were a massive reduction. And I was looking at their numbers. The numbers are still large for
So,
a company working in this space. I assume they're working on projects that are outside of VR, just like you are. And then I was looking at Cloudhead Games, and gosh, I flew up to Cloudhead Games up there in Vancouver, and uh, I fell in love with that location. Gosh,
yeah.
Vancouver is one of the prettiest places on the planet. And they've got an office out there on an island, on Vancouver Island, which is like even prettier than mainland Vancouver. And they're making this game where you shoot people, and I can understand the mentality or the artistic sort of strain of an artist, kind of like wanting to make a game like Myst, which is what Cloudhead's first games were kind of like, and
Uh,
then turning around and making one of the best shooters in VR. That's like it makes all of these decisions that are incredibly smart for comfort, for getting you into the game in like 15 seconds. Like you suddenly feel that vibe after that first minute of pistol whip. I took my Valve Index kit across the United States to set it up at my mom's house during a vacation in order to, because I knew this was coming. And sure enough, it felt like a wonderful evolution of what Beat Saber and what Synth Riders do. Very different in doing its own thing. But also you're shooting people, so like it's also like not the same as Synth Riders, right? Where you're just
no, no,
punching things. Um,
we've actually done
and
bundles with them together because 'cause we're complementary. We can do the arms, they can do the legs, we can do fitness together.
Oh, I love it. Yes, and, Pistol Whip is one of my favorite games. I still love it to this day. It's an incredible game. But
Yeah.
there was a period there where there could have been a Pistol Whip too, right?
Mhm.
Like, there could have been a different strategy done there where there could have been paid DLCs. I thought it was an incredibly smart strategy to do this all in one package where the project just keeps getting better and better with time. But why not also do paid DLCs in addition to that? Like,
Yeah.
or why not do a Pistol Whip too? And one of my questions for Cloudhead that I still don't have answered quite yet, and hope to get it answered at some point this year, was basically they started off the year here with layoffs. They got out having to announce them, and um, like a shout out here, I suppose, to just the collective love in the community of people that are trying to do right by their employees in promoting these skilled people that they have to part ways with like spreadsheets with phone numbers and email addresses on them to try to get them employment somewhere else. So like I see devs do that, and then other devs do that, and taking notes from the way people are operating here. And the VR community is not a huge community. It's
No.
it's it's a small, tight-knit group of people. I hate it's also not tight-knit, right? We're also off in our own rooms all over the globe doing our own thing. But where I'm going with this is that these companies have had to right size, and I my core question for Cloudhead Games at this point was, did Pistol Whip just save them from total closure? Did this decision that, like, they didn't make a Pistol Whip 2, they didn't do the DLC strategy, but when this shift in strategies happened at the platform level and it sort of hit them really hard, um, did this game that they made all these smart decisions for, this beloved game that is still getting downloaded and getting reviewed out there, did that keep them afloat and keep them safe, and still in business here? Is the office still there in Vancouver Island uh, because they made those smart decisions a few years ago? And as much as, like, you or I might, um, have thoughts on those other decisions that they could have made, did they make a really smart one a couple years ago in keeping this as such a all-in-one project and not doing the DLCs? So I want to get that question answered over in Cloudhead's sphere, and did Pistol Whip just save them from total closure? And then I want to come back to sort of this core question for you. What is the right size for a VR focused studio? And keeping in mind you're doing things other than VR, but
Yeah. Yeah.
what is the largest size a VR studio could be right now?
I mean, I think anyone bigger than 100 is got has to have money from the outside. And I would say 100 is probably some of the biggest at this point, right? You have Resolution and Dreams and those kind of companies, but yeah, like uh, I I I think it's a sub 100, sub 50 kind of thing. I mean, um, in turn, and then it comes down to also, are you just doing, are you just living from the games you're selling, or doing free to play models on, or do you have other contracts, or are you getting grants, projects? But it's the numbers are smaller than they were a few years ago, right? So this is not growth time, and I think even the people in the top selling are doing layoffs and struggling. Everybody's shrinking a little bit.
So you talked about resolution games there, and I have such trouble here reaching so many readers. Like, I assume I've got people in my audience out there who are mostly Quest owners. Although I'm a big believer in the Vision Pro, I love it. It's my favorite headset. I sold my car to buy the Vision Pro.
That's awesome.
Um, because I was that all in on this idea of spatial computing. And then you
Uh,
mentioned Resolution Games. So Resolution Games has Retrocade. Have you had a chance to play with Retrocade?
You know what? I haven't. I need to go check it out. By the way, that's the one thing I really love about Apple Vision Pro, is that, it's not like I'm not using it for spatial computing on a day-to-day basis, but every so often there's some new content there, and it's like, "Oh, this is cool." Like, this is some next level stuff, and it keeps you up to date with what's going on, and I heard about Retrocade, and I was like, "That's gotta be on my list," so I will check it out.
Please do. Yeah, it's my favorite. Like, so there's a couple things here to before I go shouting out, making people believe I'm a plant for Apple here. Right. I love
Heard about
Retrocade.
your
It's one of
wife,
the
Ian.
finest. It's one of the finest apps made for VR that I've tried. Except I've played it only a couple times, right? Like, I
Mm.
haven't actually put the it's not enough for me to regularly put it on and experience this. I've told Resolution and Apple, right, the moment that Donkey Kong gets dropped in their retrocade, I am going to make, it's going to pass over into that regular usage for me, because that's the cabinet I go to an arcade to experience. That's the first cabinet I head for, and it's like, can I get a new high score on the Donkey Kong cabinet? And they've got a whole bunch of those classic games in there right now, but it's just not my single cabinet that is really great for me. But I've mentioned this on a couple other of my recordings here, but I have to keep repeating it since not many people can experience this. Not many people have been able to see this.
Oh,
So there was Oculus Arcade about a decade ago now. They tried to do the very same idea. It was back on 3DOF headsets, if I recall. I might be wrong on that, on just how old the idea was, but you're talking headsets from a time when you can't even lean around inside
right.
of a headset and
Yeah.
comfortably experience that. And then you've got to go to arcade cabinet, and like they've got to figure out the angle of where a head's going to move in order to show the cabinet at the right angle. And just this miserable failure ultimately, like the whole idea gets canned. And then there's ideas like there's also a movie watching experience. They also had, I remember digging around, it was back in 2015, and finding the terms on Facebook's website or Oculus's website where you could buy a movie on on Oculus and get basically a free ticket for 5 of your friends to tune in and watch with you. And it was genius, right? Like here's this brilliant idea. This is exactly the problem I need solved. Not only do I want to be able to watch a movie, but I need to have a really easy system to get 5 of my friends in here without them having to cough up money too, and
Uh,
we're all sitting on our couches, and I basically gave a free movie ticket to my friends to sit on the couch with me. I remember, like, the one time I recall trying to do co-watching on the Gear VR class devices. The devices were overheating, and, people were being like the wireless networking wasn't working right, so the person that you're with is popping out of the experience. When I look back at, this path of minimum viable products again and again and again from Meta, you go even to the Rift S and the Quest, right? Both priced at $400 and pitted against one another as an A/B test at the same price. And I see this need from Meta to your point about scaling,
uh,
to have a product that's priced less than $500 in order to achieve mass market status. And it's almost as if if they don't have a product that can be priced less than $500 in order to achieve mass market, they're not interested in it. And so that kind of explains the AI glasses push, right?
yeah.
Here's AI glasses that are priced exactly in this market that achieves their goal of anyone can afford this, right? Like we can put you on a payment plan. We can team up with other partners to put you on a payment plan and get you this our new great thing for 5 or $10 a month or something like that. And so these AI glasses are an answer to Meta's problem of we need the next platform. We need to own the next platform
Yeah.
and be the account you use on the next platform. And VR is not that thing to them anymore because they realize after all this pain that they simply cannot price a VR headset in that range and have it achieve mass market success. So this was very long-winded on my part, but then I'm seeing the Steam frame come around, and here it's not going to be priced in that range, and all this hand-wringing in the VR community over like, "Oh, well, I wish it was the $500 thing," right? Like, there's so many
Right.
people that got to experience VR over the last 5 years because it was priced in that range. So it's this it's this crazy sort of thing in the audience out there where, like, I wouldn't be interested in this if it wasn't $500, while at the same time, Meta is looking at this going, "Nope, actually, $500 is not enough computer for people." Am I saying anything that seems really off here, Arturo, before we go on with this?
No, I mean, if I may, this is really interesting. It's stimulating to think about. I think also about, Mark said on a number of occasions during Connect, he would talk about the fact that the way Meta was tackling the market was two ways, right? From one end, with the as the glasses, right, as tiny as possible, as lightweight as possible. I'm from the other end, the VR side. That's where, like, at one point they went Quest Pro, like where they're going to put more processing power, and kind of come at it from a bigger angle, the fitness, the gaming, etc. And they were always talking about those two modes. And at one point, the convergence of AI getting popular in the mainstream and the glasses being released, like, made the side that was not even in our radar win very quickly, right? It went from, like, the Quest 2 success, the Quest 3 launch, to all of a sudden glasses. It was very abrupt, sort of the way things shifted. But I think what they're still contending with, and I don't think even Meta has answered this. This is not me coming from insider information. This is just me thinking from the outside. That that's why they're like, we're not leaving VR, because I still think that thesis holds, that they need both ends. And I think that's true for all of them, for all of the players in the platform players, right? Like, Apple Vision Pro launched very differently, right? They didn't care about price at all. And people called it a failure because it sold under 500K units. It sold even, according to reports, below expectations, yada yada yada. But a lot of people are very influenced and shaped by Apple Vision Pro today. To me, it was a huge success, in terms of sort of what it did for the industry and what it did for the thinking in for the people that are in it. And now, I don't have any inside information with Apple, but the rumors are, right, that they have glasses coming now, that they're prioritizing that. Does that mean to is that like the end of the Vision line? Like, I don't think so. I think, I mean, that's why Android It's Art, like, they're also doing glasses. They're coming with It's Real and Project Aura, but the first thing they launched was with Galaxy XR, right? So, to me, this thesis that you have to come at it from both ends is still present in every single one of these companies.
Mm,
And yeah, like, Meta pushed it to the, like, how do we make this the most mainstream at all costs? Literally, because they were, like, burning money per headset to sell them, right? So, and then they saw that that had a peak, and something else was gonna make them more money, and investors were pressuring them to cut down spending. And then they had to increase spending in AI, right? So that's my, like, to me, this whole thing has a business explanation, and it doesn't mean retrieving, or withdrawing, but VR has proven to be a little bit of a niche, and maybe caps out at, like, from what I understand, our numbers peaked at 20-30 million. And like, maybe if Meta had kind of kept at it for a while just in VR, and not distracted with AI and AR, and glasses, maybe they could have gotten that number to be 40-50, but over a large amount of investment, and the market was not there yet. So now we're going to move on with glasses, and that's going to create a different kind of XR adoption. And I think there will be another time with which in which BR will have another surge. I don't think anybody's fully retrieving. I think it's just that there's a niche. And then to your comment about price, like, nobody else can really do $500 because it's going out at a loss, and nobody wanted to, like, follow Meta's footsteps. Meta clearly, even though they had the cash, they had too much pressure from the outside to do not keep spending it on that. And so, I think that it's more of that original thesis is still true. They're all following it, and VR will have its moment again. Uh, but for now, we're gonna live with the niche, and we're gonna live with that reality. I think, I've told you this before, of, like, on previous conversations, but I don't think Valve with Frame is gonna be, market expansion. I think it'll help identify the core gamer better. So for us, like, a game like Final Fury might be a better fit on Steam than on Quest, and maybe Steam is nice enough that maybe there's a business for Final Fury for an indie studio like us. But it's not gonna, like, increase the number of VR users by a significant significantly higher number. I don't think anyone can really do that right now. That's why Meta is still king and will be king unless somebody else is willing to put that much money to sort of subsidize the market. The market's not going to like just open up. And it does seem to me that the glass adoption, the lightweight glass adoption is maybe the better path to even open the VR market. Now, when is that all going to happen? When are we going to have our next surge? I have no idea, and that's why Kluge is not all in on XR in terms of all of our staff. We've diversified
Mhm.
because the question of when is not for me to answer. And I just gotta make sure I'm alive when that is because I do love this space and I do want to succeed in it.
I've talked about this a little bit elsewhere, but just to repeat, this insight I had. So in 2017, I believe it was 2017, I went to the Valve booth
Mm,
at GDC, and they had a demo. I think it was inside the Valve booth, and then they also had a demo. I think it was with Toby, with basically eye tracking added to the headsets that Valve was promoting at the time. And the Toby booth, so in the Valve booth, if I recall correctly, I think they were showing some social VR, and then in the Toby booth, they had an interaction demo, and the interaction demo was throwing items at some objects that were in the distance. So you've got the controller in your hand and you're doing the release gesture on the grip buttons, and the thing you're throwing is going out to hit these objects. Like imagine a shooting gallery, right? You're
mm,
shooting these objects out on pedestals out there, but instead of shooting things, I'm throwing things at these pedestals. And the demo from Toby showed here's eye tracking off first, and here's the best throwing mechanic we could have. And you throw these objects, and none of the objects are hitting their targets, right? And now we're going to turn eye tracking on. And now you're going to throw this object at these pedestals over there. And as soon as they turn eye tracking on, and as soon as they know what your eye is pointed at, they're able to turn this throwing mechanic into a god power, basically. It feels like absolute magic the moment that they turn eye tracking on. Every one of my throws hits the object that I'm intending to hit. And this mechanic where they can't really know what you're throwing at because of the tracking limitations and because not knowing what you're looking at and all those things is instantly turned into almost a pistol whip like connection, right? Like it just, oh wow, this feels right. So here's this demo for me, just a lowly VR journalist in 2017, a couple years into focusing on this market, and I'm going, eye tracking is the future of VR. Like, I think there's probably a headline out there where I said something to that effect. But I tried to convey as much as I possibly could in this write up and this magic of eye tracking. Like, I really don't think there should be headsets sold without eye tracking after this. And I'm talking about a period where Meta has just like Oculus Go hasn't even shipped yet, I think. Like it's like they're still going to try a 3DOF without eye tracking, and they're going to try to hit this super low cost dollar number to achieve mass market computing or mass market VR at this, again, the price is their guiding principle. We can achieve this mass market at this price by
yeah.
removing this many components. And I'm out there on this website that, Meta leadership is probably not reading as closely as they should, and trying to say, look, eye tracking is magic. So you fast forward a couple of years and they ship one headset with eye tracking, and it's not even really good eye tracking, right? It's on an underpowered chip, and it's not the number of cameras to really do it really well. I remember going into their avatar demo and my eye is sort of blinking at me there because the eye tracking isn't doing such a great job. Um, but all this to say, it feels like eye tracking. I've got the track record here that I'm trying to prove that like since 2017, it's
Yeah.
been clear that eye tracking is a necessary piece. of these devices. And then you end up with a Quest 3S shipping in what 2023 or so, with just again bare minimum parts in order
Yeah.
to try to achieve this mass market thesis that they're going for. At the same period that Apple is shipping eye tracking as a fundamental component of their operating system. And then Android XR follows suit, eye tracking being a key part of their system. And here we are with Steam Frame coming around the corner here with eye tracking also being a fundamental part of their ecosystem. So, this is me trying to parade around like the fact that I've been saying this consistently for almost a decade now that eye tracking is incredibly important. And where I'm starting to put my reporting into here, and trying to identify is what use cases do we get out of eye tracking? What sort of things are people missing? And if you're paying a close attention to what Apple's doing in the Apple ecosystem here with Vision OS, they've got foveated streaming, which is trying to take um, this what you're looking at in VR and send it over to a rendering engine over on your PC or perhaps on your Mac in the near future, and then compositing both of those things, getting the image back from the rendering engine over on your PC, compositing it with the things the headset is seeing or producing on its own, and after doing all that, you end up getting a cockpit or a car that you're driving in that is a composite of this beautiful rendering engine you've got over there, rendering the exterior of your car or cockpit, the ground and the sky, all could be rendered at super high resolutions by the device that has the power to do it. Then your cockpit or your car, your interior can be rendered by the local device, the headset itself, and eye tracking being this fundamental component of making that possible. I'm seeing Steam Frame building towards this same idea. It's all been
Wow.
architected right around this idea of eye tracking and having the content come to you rather than you using, stick locomotion to go to the content. And that's the foundation for them to then take a next step here, which is high-end simulation, right? You've got so many training scenarios that can be aided by getting into the driver's seat of a car or the cockpit of an airplane and spending 100 hours practicing behind the wheel, a literal wheel or a little literal stick for your plane, and you can get real practice in these simulators. What I see here as the opportunity for Apple and Google and for Steam Frame, because of them all focusing on this minimum viable system of eye tracking being included, is sort of skipping almost the entirety of this market that happened over the last decade of stick-based locomotion, the stuff that makes you feel sick,
Yeah.
because you're using smooth locomotion, the stuff that gives people instant nausea in some cases. They're going to skip that whole middle section of the market, right? They've got the low end covered or the simple bring the content to me stuff like Retrocade or like watching a movie and having this big IMAX screen. That's all covered by Apple. They've got that locked down. But now what
Wow.
they can do is take the Vario system, right, which is many, many thousands of dollars, far more expensive than a Vision Pro, and do the compositing that Vario is doing, which is phenomenal, by the way, of compositing a physical cockpit with the virtual content that's outside your windows, with your hands that are all being shown inside of the system, and bringing the cost down of that system. Take something that's $15,000 or $20,000 and now make it only cost $3,000 or $5,000. And you also get to have the benefit here when you do it all right this way, when you have high frame rates being provided by the system, not cutting corners and getting down to like 40 frames per second, getting doubled to 90 frames per second, right? All these tricks that they've done to try to compress good VR down into a system that costs only $500. No, what they have now is a system that is comfortable for 99% of the people because you don't move to the content comes to you. And then if you go to the super high end and try one of these simulator systems, you're in a cockpit that is 90 or 120 frames per second by default. The rendering is being done by a high powered rendering engine over there to give you the exterior of your system, and you're in a game or a simulation that by default anchors you to the environment that you're in more than those stick-based locomotion games, the games that are trying to copy shooter games and adopt those systems to VR. No, what they can do now is you're in the cockpit of a plane. You look around, and most of what you see is plane, right? And only when you really lean over out the window do you actually see mostly sky. And when you bank left and try to like look behind you at that plane that's shooting at you from behind, do you might you feel a little bit of motion sickness. But even if you do experience motion sickness because you're doing that, it's going to be 120 frames per second or 90 or above because of all these decisions getting made at the fundamental platform level. So I've spoken here for probably 10 minutes here on my big level, like this is my big brain theory here on where the market is moving.
Mm.
Where there's you know, it's not everything going away. Like, I feel like there's a huge market here for people that would love to put a racing car in their home or would love to put a cockpit in their home, and it's just been 5 to 10,000 or $15,000 to do that. Well, if you make that a couple $1,000 and you tell dad, "Dad, I can train to be a pilot and actually get my pilot's license after, 100 hours in my simulator. Dad, can you please buy me the new Mac, or can you buy me the new Vision headset so that I can get my pilot's license a little bit quicker than I could otherwise?" It completely changes the market. It completely changes the proposition of what it means to have a personal computer and a computer on your face. All right. What do you think of everything I've said here?
I I mean, I'm just gonna latch on to the last thing you said in the sense that none of this, of course, none of this is going away, right? Like it, it, it does have, and I think that's the exciting part. The one thing I would say is like on the eye tracking part, which is like, let's say the substance of your rant here. Um, it's like it may I could have it may be the standard. It's not the standard yet, right? And none of it is. Which I think is the most exciting part of being in this space. Like we come Klutz comes from web design. By the time we chose to get into labs, web design was going through that really minimal kind of space where everybody had the photographic hero banner, with the clear CTA, the ball headline, and you scroll down and all the layout looked the same, right? And I have artists in my team going like, I can't do another one of those. Like they all look the same, they all feel the same. And the web market, now, with within a pick your LLM and they'll build you a website we used to charge a lot of money for in half a day kind of thing, or or sooner. And it's gotten very generic, very standardized, very templatized. It's ours like still pretty fully open. We're still debating even whether people are going to adopt the big thing or the little thing or how or when, and I think that that is very exciting from a creative perspective of like there are no templates, there are no standards just yet, even as we have matured somewhat, and it hasn't gone there yet. We're still fighting over what's the main input. Like a lot of people, I know Denny from Cloudhead posted it a whole thing about a whole article about when Apple Vision Pro chose to not come out with controllers and the importance of controllers, and whereas Valve is really doubling down and making the controllers even feel like bring the features from your regular console controllers as well. And I think what I love the most, and I think about it more, you're much more technical about this. I'm very um, I look at the people behind it, right? And Apple is an experience, a design company first and foremost, so it makes sense. Like they came with a strong conviction on what their experience feels like and how eye tracking was the thing. Meta is an engineering growth company at core, right? So they come at it from building lots of feature sets, and not always having not the same clarity, but the features are there. And Valve comes at it like they're the gaming company, and so they were like, we don't care as much about pass through. We want immersive gaming, and so we're going to bring black and white gaming. And I think the audience, both the VR aficionados and the VR is dead audience, is always throwing Rotten Tomatoes no matter what you do. And all
You
and I'm
can't
just
win, you can't win,
well,
yeah.
you definitely can win in this space, right? But the at the end of the day, VR is not dead. It's never gonna die. It's just because to your point, there's all these use cases. I had a CTO a couple of years ago who quit because he wanted to do something on his own. And what he's doing is he's building go-kart LVE experiences in Spain with VR. So he's going all in on building these go-kart experiences that you put a VR headset on and like you're dreaming around like you're in this other world that has nothing to do with the little room with your little cart that you have. And that's what he's building and he's making money, like he's making a business out of it. So LBE apparently is taking off, not to the degree that like say consumer went in terms of adoption, but there's money there. That's and so I think that Vario, I don't know how to pronounce them as good as you, but they are an enterprise company, right? And there's a lot of growth there. So I think we're gonna keep seeing that, right? Like in one end, it feels like, oh, it's all going to glasses, but no, let's not forget that there's stuff even more high end. And to your point, there could even be consumer use cases for that high end stuff because you might want to bring the go karts to your house. And so I think all of it is we're in this time and for the many, many years of as we see AI and robotics kind of take precedence in the minds of the world, XR is still thriving and shaping itself and changing and figuring out who it is and where it fits in. But I think at the end of the day, to me, the question is spatial sort of 3D that is the 3D internet the future? And if the answer is yes, then HR has to inevitably be a part of it,
Mm.
and it feels like the answer is yes. It's just like there's no like the when. The when is always the question. But while the answer is yes, there will always be money in it in some capacity, and there will always be studios in it in some capacity. Um, and so I don't think it'll ever fully die, and I think there will be a time when it'll be more formally takes off. Like, for example, even if AR is the one that sort of takes like, with glasses and AR, if that were to take off, that will help VR tremendously. Like, this is not a versus situation. This is
Mm.
a 3D internet situation. But the thing is, the 3D internet or the spatial infrastructure is a bitch. Like, we're building everything from scratch. And AI cannot just swallow the models and replicate it for us because there's nothing there yet, not enough,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I think it's all exciting and fascinating and when you bring it down to the real, it's like there's a lot of work to do and the money is not obvious. But by the way, that is one of my absolute favorite things of the XR community is going to all these conferences and realizing that most people in here are not in it for the money. I think when Quest
Mm.
2 started succeeding, you did see a little bit of money people come in, and it's a different vibe, right? Like, I like the fact that the people that are in it are true believers, because I think it just brings a purity to it and a creativity to it that's really lovely. And I think there's gonna be a time, hopefully, there's gonna be a time in my lifetime when we're all like kind of rolling cigars with $100 bills or whatever they are. And we're gonna be saying, "Fuck, we missed those times when things were more uncertain because it was more
Oh,
pure."
the good
Yeah,
old days,
exactly.
as Michael
Exactly, the good
Abrash
old
said.
days.
I love it. So there's a lot more we could get into here. I do want to start moving to the wrap up phase of our conversation, but we've had a wonderfully honest conversation here about the realities of the market.
Ugh,
There is one sort of like so Oculus Touch is a brilliant product. Has always been a brilliant product. If you go and look at what the Steam Frame controllers are, they look a lot more like Oculus Touch than they do the Vive wands.
uh,
And it indicates sort of like this winning architecture that Oculus had back in the day, that they've sort of honed down into this ringless device. And then this thing happened over the last few years with Oculus Touch, where the most interesting things that were being done with Oculus Touch were not handheld. So you could attach it to a golf club, you could attach it to a tennis racket, you could put it on your table to track a piece of paper, and it would
mm,
keep the piece of paper in sync to the headset, and now you could use it to learn how to draw in the app Pencil. Beautiful app, a brilliant app with that beautiful insight in literally turning the touch controller into a paperweight in order to make it a tracked object that would work in this fashion for you. One of the products I messed with last year was Ace Virtual Shooting. They sent me one of their mock guns, and the first what you do with it is you attach the touch controller to the top of it, facing you, um, and it gives the tracking to the headset, and then you've got a tracked gun that haptically has the weight of a physical gun. You pull the trigger on it, and it passes the trigger pull through to the trigger of the touch controller. And so now you're pulling the trigger of the gun that feels very close to what a real gun feels like in your hand. It's got the heft. I've both myself and when I've handed that product to other people, your first reaction is like, "Wow, oh
mm,
wow, this feels like a real gun because it's got that sort of weight to it." Um, and even though it doesn't sort of shake when you pull it to the same degree that a real gun would when you pull the trigger, you still can have the haptics of the controller pass through to the gun. So, I just need to make that call out. I've been very rough over this conversation over Meta's strategy over the span of time, but you go and see this product, Oculus Touch, honed
mm,
down into this thing that is being copied now by Valve. The Steam frame controllers don't look like the Index controllers either, right? There's this very different philosophy here, but this is all to say that, like, I think there's a big opportunity there for Valve to come for the tracked object market as well that has bubbled up. If they can
yeah,
really do this magic, thing where the controllers double as a Steam controller, and you could maybe attach them to physical objects and get all of these other simulated, objects added to your ecosystem.
mm,
I want those Steam frame controllers sold in the Apple Store, and I wanna use them with my Apple Vision Pro because I can't take the big ringed controllers for the PlayStation VR 2. I can't take those with my bag with me, they're not portable, but I can slip a pair of small ringless tracked objects inside my bag and take those with me. And goodness, if that can also be a tracked object that I can mount to my golf club or my tennis racket or my gun or perhaps to a steering wheel, right? Like if I could do all these other things with it, there's a lot of opportunity there that I would love to see the market use more. I would love to see people discover all these additional use cases that are possible when you've got like a low cost, high quality, highly tracked object in your space. Is there anything else that you want to share or talk about as you look out to 2026 and 2027? what do you want people to know about what Synth Riders is, what Kluge is, and what you're doing?
Yeah, no, just a little commercial on Kluge. I guess from the top, like we're really focused on two sides of the company right now. We have the premium side, which leads with Synth Riders, but we're working on music games in general. And looking at sort of continuing to push the boundaries of what music gaming looks like. So that's our focus there. On the other side, we have what is called the UGC side. We recently renamed it to the Crew, so Crew with the K, and really talking about you know like that's where we sort of go very um fast turnaround on games. We shipped a game on Roblox called Galaxy of Brain Rots in 5 weeks using AI workflows and whatnot. And that's more looking at the Crew versus premium. So that's the two modalities Kluge is on. So we're doing, a lot of our Horizon Worlds experience being a UGC platform at core, translated to Roblox. So we're pushing games there now. We've done 3 games. We're on our way to work on a fourth one. It's going to come out in a matter of weeks. So if any fellow VR developer is interested in coming to the Roblox platform, we do highly encourage it, and we're happy to talk to you as well because I know that that's part of your audience. And I think it is good to be thinking about diversifying. I think there is actually a funny audience match between where Quest landed in terms of the Gorilla Tag generation and where Roblox is at. That there is a fit there, sort of a more synergy than thought of at first glance. And then we're still working Horizon Worlds in mobile games. Meta has made no surprise in that, and we're pushing in all of the all things AI, where without the slop part. And yeah, like that's sort of where we're at. We're making music games and UGC games, and we're not just thinking of VR and XR, but we're not leaving anytime soon. And we have strong convictions in the space. But we also we love gaming at heart, and we're happy to collaborate with the community. And thank you for giving me the space. This all came along as Brad Lynch started it by talking about our layoffs, and then I saw the news all over VR. I'm like, hey, somebody could ask me a question. I'm happy to talk. And thank you for bringing all the good questions. I don't really shy away from them. I think I don't know. It's good to have nuance and open conversation about the space. There tends to be a lot of sensationalism in the space. I wrote a post just a few days ago on Rec Room because again there was a lot of sensationalism there. And shout out to everybody there because they were by far my favorite personal game. So I'm really sad to see them go. But I did
Uh,
say in my post it wasn't VR. Why you had to go? I mean, VR chat is the proof of that. It was a different thing,
mm,
and it's okay, like, and no blame. It's hard to make this happen, but don't blame it in the space. I think, yeah. Anyway, I'm just thankful for the space for nuanced conversation because I really love XR. I really love gaming, and Klutch is an independent company. Trying to have a very frank discussion of how we move forward in this difficult new emerging space, which is not only gaming's having a tough time, HR is having a tough time, and AI is here to change our workflows, which is also tough and exciting. And we're here to discuss all of it because I think community is what makes this happen.
yeah, I appreciate that so much. There's a lot to sort of mention there at the end there. I mean, AI, AI is the reason I got fired from that
Right.
publication, and also I'm messing around with AI, right? Like
Right. It's
people
I
are
the line I say
yeah.
is I'm so excited, I'm so, like, anxious at the same time.
so like yeah, I'm not people are like hungry for my thoughts on AI because of this kind of complicated story about it, and you're so right. I appreciate sort of you responding to the questions. This is an invitation now to anyone else out there that's hearing these words to come on here and have a more nuanced conversation, to have a longer form conversation where we can really dive into these issues, right? Like our minds are a little bit melted by the feed of
Yeah.
endless scrolling, of doom scrolling, and the compression that happens to conversation when you
Yes.
gotta you gotta get word perfect on exactly what you're saying. Otherwise, um, some keyboard warrior out there is going to rip apart what you're saying because you didn't pick the right word. So I appreciate you calling that out. That's what I'm going for here with the Good VR podcast, with what I'm doing at Good Virtual Reality. I've never, I've always tried to get that nuance across in my write-ups. I'm now trying to get that across in these conversations. So open invitation out there. Email me, editor@goodvirtualreality.com. If you want to have a conversation like this, I'm so appreciative of you coming on here, Arturo, and getting into this. And we will get into that AI discussion soon enough,
Sounds
and
good.
really unfold what it's good for, what it's bad for, the workflows that people are using.
You know what? Maybe by then I'll send my agent and he'll talk to you on my behalf, you know? I won't even be here.
No, no, that's bad, that's bad, please don't. Alright, no, I kinda wanna have that conversation so I can get it to, I can I'll jailbreak it and see if I can get your passcodes and
That's
stuff.
right, that's right.
Uh, alright, well, thank you, Arturo, and, is there anywhere that you would wanna send people to find more about what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm very active on LinkedIn, so feel free to connect me with me personally there. And of course, we have our own official channels, klugeinteractive.com, and we're all over, X, Twitter, sorry, X or Instagram or TikTok, whatever platform. Kluge is there either through the Kluge the studio or Synth Riders. We're a small studio. We're always reading. There's humans at the helm here. So feel free to reach out through any of those channels. And then yeah, me personally, I am very active on LinkedIn. That's sort of my social media platform of choice and my messaging platform of choice. So if you want to talk, that's where you can find me. But feel free to check out Kluge and Synth Riders.
Thank you so much. Oh, one last pitch here. Are you gonna be adding new artists to Synth Riders? Can we expect, big new names, other
I
surprises
was
down there?
told by my CMO that I can officially say that Dua Lipa is coming in next.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Alright, well, and you're looking to line up people after that as well?
We already have artists of that caliber coming in. We already have them locked and loaded. We're not stopping. Don't. That's a take that as at least for now, unless I say otherwise. Like that. That's just gonna keep going. We're not going away. We will rock you by Queen. Remember that.
And yeah, I wanted to, I had meant to do a couple times in this conversation where when you bring a big artist or a big song in, you make a big spectacle of it in the game. It's not just like another song. You do a whole experience around a lot of these big artists and these
Yeah,
big
we have
songs,
these
right?
music videos, experiences. Yeah, more are coming there. They take a lot of effort, but we do them with love. So yeah, more of those are coming as well. People are always asking us when, but there will be another one coming this year.
Awesome. All right, thank you, Arturo. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you, Ian. Bye.